Morning, guys. It's Eric in the alley again. I'm just stopping back, give you an update on PT Cruiser and how that's going along for me. I got the front cover off. This evening when I got home, I had a little time. I took off the front engine mount, and whenever the belt's extremely loose, I mean, you could almost take this off with your hand up. Let me see a good way to get down there to show you. So that's where I'm figuring a lot of that sound was coming from. I mean, I did take out number one plug. The tube was filled with oil, but that's kind of a different direction. Like right now, I want to focus on the timing belt. And then if Ronnie wants to go for the rocker cover gasket, then we'll do that too. But that's where I imagine it's coming. But I have it at bottom dead center now. So I just want to look up with a borescope, just confirm that the valves aren't bent. We've seen some good compression humps, so, I'm not fearing the worst. I'm expecting to see unbent valves. So the tensioner I expected to be in a couple pieces, but it's actually, still there. But that's the progress I'm making. I'm going to take some images with the borescope, and then I'll share them with you just to show you what the inside of it looks like. Confirm we have some good valves. All right, guys, I'll be back. All right, guys, I just want to show you. I have the crank at TDC, the compression stroke. In the top, see, it's hard to see from back there, but we're off. Just doesn't even appear to be a whole tooth. It's almost like it was stretched to the point of getting ready to jump. Because if you look down where I hit with the light, the belt, I mean, look how much plays in that belt. Every time the crank rotates, you could hear it hit the plastic in the bottom here. And then whenever it rotates, you could hear the teeth hit off of here and the belt hit off of here. So hopefully that's a lot of what the noise was. I mean, just the way it sounded, I wasn't too confident, and it's just a case where our scopes see a lot more than our eyes do and our ears do, because it sounded like it had a lot more wrong with it than the timing belt. Or you'd expect there to be more damage or more of a difference. And it just looks like the belt got stretched to the point where it's definitely ready to jump. So, no pun intended, it was perfect timing to have it changed right now, because I think you hit this a couple times, you know, hard acceleration, that thing's going to go. It's I'll spin it again just to let you see how it bounces off there. And I mean, on the scope, that's all I was getting to. We seen that image. We knew from the scope that off from the known good, it wasn't much. It was very little. That's why I was surprised to find a belt so loose after only seeing such a tiny bit of difference, but it just didn't actually jump yet. But the scope was able to pick that up. Our ears could hear something was wrong, but you know, I took a little extra precautions in making sure this thing had, you know, compression with the RC test. I dropped the bore scope down there just to confirm, you know, because I wouldn't expect the scope to be lying to us on an RC test. But still, you have to take number one out anyways. That's a perfect time to drop a cam, just, you know, see what the valves look like. You know, maybe one of them got nipped, but the RC test should have showed us something if it did. Now, just watch the belt right there. I'll see if I can do this steady enough whenever it turns. Hold on, I'll grab the tripod. Okay, I'm going to just spin it over now. Let's see, without the scope, without the camera, I mean, I hate to go back, but that was just the compression there. Okay. She jumps around pretty good. Alright guys, I just wanted to share a quick tip in case you're ever in the same situation. I have to take off the timing gears without the belt on it. And it's the way this valve train was, you don't want to go racking out trying to loosen the bolts. They do make holders, but I just use the old timing belt, slip it around the sprocket, put it through. This is 1 1/8 inches, and then just tighten it up around it, and then bend backwards so you're pushing down rubber onto the belt and just making a strap wrench, but just using the timing belt it came off with. I was able to loosen up both bolts in, you know, a matter of seconds with it. It took me longer to find a wrench than it did actually loosen them. So just a quick tip if you're ever in that situation too, because they do make holders that go in between the gears, but they're just cheap. Most of them anyways from Amazon are just cheap plastic gears made to hold the cam there while you replace a belt or a chain. But it's on this, whenever you go to push that, all that torque it's on there, because there's Loctite on them bolts. It's, you know, it takes a little bit of strength to break them free. I don't want that on a plastic tool or on a valve train. So this is a quick tip if you're ever in that situation. Hey guys, just giving you a quick update on PT Cruiser. At the timing belt on these, I mean, they're bare. After in hindsight, I did it according to like all data, the factory, technique of putting it on that I'll show you what I mean. The belt goes, they tell you to start at the crankshaft at the bottom and then go around the water pump, around the idler, around the cams, and then onto the tensioner. But I mean, there's literally no room to, the tensioner's in the absolute worst spot to be the last part to put on. So in hindsight, what I watched another video I seen this morning on it. The guy, he said it's common they take these sprockets off. You put it around the tensioner first, and up here where you have, because the engine lifts up a good bit, and then it's easier to get the cam bolt onto the cams. I mean, that would on this, that would have been the way I went if I had to do another one, because it was literally, some of the videos you watch, they say you're not going to get this on the first shot. They're absolutely right, and it's a bear to get on and off each time. It's whenever you got the notches aligned, this cam wants to move, and they don't recommend a cam holding tool or anything, but the one side will want to move with the other side. A cam holding tool, I mean, it might have been a little bit help, but basically once you have it on a timing mark, the intake cam will keep it from spinning if you push it down, but you have to hold it down and actually turn this a half a turn this way. But if I put it around the tensioner first and put this camshaft on, it would almost lay flat once it was on the tensioner, and then you have to really push and get it on. But then you have to take it off if you're off one tooth. Once it was on one of the camshafts, it would either be lined up, but the cam moved while I was putting the belt on, and it wouldn't be lined up on the crank. So you have to like overestimate one tooth, put it back on, and then get it. But if I had to do it again, I would probably do it that way. I mean, I don't like doing them like that, but I have before. And you know, some of these belts go on really easy. Some of them are, you know, bare. This is just it's a very tight belt even without the tensioner. And if you follow all that, you're going to be, I mean, trying to get this slip out around there, which you can't see. But anyways, I'll show you the time. Well, there's where the timing marks are after spinning it once. They're both lined up there. Hard to see the white marks on them, but enhance. There's the timing marks there. They're dead on there. And on the bottom, dead on. So now it's going back together. The front plate on these, this is what's proves to be on all the videos I was seeing, they said this is the worst part of the engine, or the job, is putting this iron front cover back on. But getting it off, they said, was the hardest part of the job, and it came right off. That was actually one of the easier parts of the job. But all right, guys, that's just a quick update. I'm going to get it back together, and you know, I still have the back probes in. Other side, I didn't have to change or do anything with that, so we're all set up to get the cam and crank correlation whenever it's all done. I just want to see that little notch line up on the waveform, like how we were off just a tiny bit. So, but the belt didn't move much, so that was good. All right, guys, I'll keep you posted. Hey guys, it's not going too bad. Got the engine still lowered. It looks like it's going to be really easier to put the serpentine and the alternator belt on with the engine lower than jack it up. I'm not sure what all data says. It's like broken into parts, like if you were doing each individual part, but it's just going to be so much easier, so I'm going to take that chance. It's a pressed on balancer. There's no keyway, anything on it, no timing mark, just the red dots that they put for identification, like checklist stuff. But I just put blue Loctite on it, ran it home with the Cobalt, whatever electric Ugga Dugga is, that's what it's torqued to. It's not going to go nowhere, like it draws it in. It's like a twofer. And I got the top engine mount bracket in there, this black bracket. It was easier with the center bolt out. So it's going okay. You do have to jack the engine up a lot, up and down, just move it around to get the bolts in. The center engine mount, it's a big iron bracket, that one. You have to lower it to get the bottom bolts and raise it to get the top bolts. But other than that, slow but steady. All right, guys, the same code I had was from before I changed the timing belt. The air temperature, the air intake temperature sensor, I was unplugged, so I plugged it back in. What I'm going to do is just clear the codes and run it for a while, let the thermostat open, because that's what I like to do. If I can, let the thermostat open, being as I was putting a new water pump on it, make sure we got no leaks before I put the splash shield and the passenger side tire back on. Then put it all back together, take it for a scoot. Alright guys, there's just some live data that I found pretty interesting. The short term, it's swinging both ways. I mean, that's a good sign. Long term's taken away 0.4. We haven't really run this at its first warm up. The temperature is at 167, so the thermostat wouldn't be open yet. But this was kind of interesting. But then I realized at the end of this, I plugged the battery back in to do that compression test, the RC test. I never disconnected the battery, so me turning the crank by hand or something must have set it out of sync even with it off, or yeah, it's just normal after having the sensors off like that. But well, actually I didn't have any of them sensors off, but somehow it knew I was turning the crank by hand, I imagine. But it says cam and crank it out of sync at start, current states in sync. I don't know if they give us any more data with that or not. No, just in or out of sync. I just thought it was pretty interesting that it was out. It picked up that it was out, but didn't set a code for that, just for the air intake temperature sensor. But so far so good. I'm going to let it warm up, get it up. That's all I usually do, is get these main pits up, because you can see how it's running if you got a misfire or anything like that. And then you can, you know, usually hang it off the window while you're checking for leaks. And then yeah, you can see when the thermostat opens. Hi guys, that was a long battle, uphill sometimes, downhill others, but one of the main problems I had a problem with is the harmonic balancer. The crank pulley is pressed on, and I had it back together and the belts weren't aligning, and they do make a press kit for this, or but the regular one at the parts store rents, it won't work on a 2.4. You need one for a 2.0 and a 2.4. Nobody rents them, and they're like $80 online. So I just put some lightweight oil on, and I kept hitting it with a dead blow until it pressed it on there. Just no metal hammer. I just kept pushing it gradually with a dead blow hammer, and got it on there pretty good. But what I wanted to do is just do the cam and crank. I still had probes, in the wire piercing probes into the harness, so from before I did it, and I'm going to run it now and just see what I'm looking at. Runs good, no codes. Got everything back together, like the inner fender well, everything. Very good. Take it for a test drive after this, but I wanted to make sure the thermostat was opening, no coolant leaks, everything like that. No codes, you know, that's always a good sign. The cam crank's on, so it's, you know, everything's pretty good that way. But I just wanted to go one more time, get the cam crank correlation with H-scope. Alright guys, I shut out the light to give you a little bit better view. I'm on channel 1, which would be the yellow, that should be the crank sensor, and the green should be the cam. I'm on both of them, 3.3 volt scale, 3 milliseconds and 75 kilosample a second. Now I'm going to just hit start and start the car. This thing does have that. That's why I was like doing the RC test on it when I heard the way it started before. And I thought some of it was timing, but I think some of it just a starter, you know, background going to the starter, you know, bad connection. But that's something for another day there. What I'm mainly interested in now is checking, getting it back to him, because I'll show you the puddle that the Cadillac's leaving in the alley. So he has one car running anyway. That should be more than enough. Okay, and right here is where I was interested in before, because this signal here was walking outside of the green. And just refresher, the crank's over to the right slightly, and it looks like the cam signal goes almost through the first tooth. Here's the one long tooth. Here's the second tooth. So here's where I'd be lining up. The whole yellow tooth is inside of the green, which before we weren't getting that. Here's that sink again that I was using. So the yellow tooth is staying the same. Same distance off of it. See right in here. This whole yellow tooth is fitting in. And looking at that small drawing, it looks like it's almost splitting this tooth. We could see we're a little bit to the right. That'd be right here, this edge coming down. So we were only one tooth off, and that put it back in line. So that's good enough for me. Tell him to take it for a test drive, give it back to Ronnie, let him drive around some. Hey guys, well, that was pretty fun. There's always, I don't do like a how-to video, especially on something like that, just because, you know, the angles of the camera, but there's always something interesting on every engine, every job you do, every time and chain job, you know, like, I like watching them. There's always something interesting about every one, or even if it's, hey, look how far out of time this is, but I can't believe this chain is hanging on, whatever it is, you know, carnage, you know. But there's always something interesting, and I just like, you know, I'll put together a little, you know, any of the interesting parts. But the main thing was just like, it's kind of cool seeing an engine, out of time, even though that wasn't, horribly out of time. We caught it right in time. That's a good thing. But being able to just leave my scope leads hooked up until I changed the timing belt, plugged it right back in. I mean, that's pretty cool. I really like that. Swilling the cart over when I'm done. My leads are already there. Put some liquid tape, because I did use the wire piercers. Then I wrapped it up, with harness tape. He's been driving it around, so that's good. And I'm going to go to the screen recorder, like the before and after. And I know there's probably a way to do it on a math channel or something, but the way as sloppy as that belt was, even though it only jumped one tooth, it has to be in time, because it shows a code at 2 teeth. It'll set a code, a correlation code. But now it wasn't, and it was only off one tooth, but it did have a lot of play in it. So it's not picking up the play. It's picking up that it's only off one tooth, but technically it's stretching, but it's turning the teeth in order and only being off one. Probably just due to the stretching. It probably didn't even jump. I didn't find a tooth that was off of it. But the distance, I'm going to measure from one point of the cam to another point of the crank and see if it changes on the proving that the timing's walking around. That might be able to prove that there's slop in the belt. Not so much that it was just off, because I mean, it's off very close. The factory data, they give you a very, very small waveform. And Martin, with the H-scope now, there's you could upload known goods. I don't know what the resolution requirements, everything I ran where I knew I could see, I think it was at 75 kilosamples a second. I mean, it was good enough for me. I don't know but I mean, it would have been a lot nicer if I had a known good waveform on H-scope to load to compare, because that's, what you get from all data. It's not that big of a waveform, so you can't really. I was trying to use like the editing tools, the straight line, to measure up edges, but it'd be nice just to have a known good. This one has to be a known good, because it looks very close to the one given by the factory. Not that all the factory images are 100%, right or decodable, but, now at least I know I got one for this car. I have one for a couple other cars. If I can upload them, I'm definitely going to give it a shot, because I know, it would have definitely helped me if it helped somebody else. That's what it's all about, guys. And that's it. And we're going to see what's up with this car. If it's any interesting, I'll be sure to share it with you. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Adios. Okay, guys, this is just what I was talking about, taking measurements to see if there's any slack or anything going on with the timing chain or the timing belt. What I was doing is just dropping the cursor like that, and then dropping another one. That one I'm on the falling edge of the camshaft, the green. Cursors are locked there. And then I'm going to this yellow edge, the falling edge. And then you get, I'm going to have to move it again to get the lock back. But once you get it right where you want it, lock it. And then whenever you move one, you move the both. So you could go to a whole nother event. You could shrink it down too and just do it at all different, whatever you have in the buffer. You could just check it out all different places. And this is the known bad. See how this didn't move, the cursors didn't move. We're still on the falling edge here, and this should have been on the falling edge of the yellow. And on the known good, they stay together, and it's that's what you're looking for when you're looking for the slot, because it was just within this tolerance. Just one frame ago, one event ago, one rotation of the camshaft, 2 rotations of the crank, and we're back to, we're off a little bit. You can measure out minute amount, but it really wouldn't be doing us any good. I was just showing you how you could check for slack in it. Do that, and if you're staying all pretty much the same, not moving, you know, variating from this, then you know that there's, you know, the chain or the belt's pretty tight. All right, guys, I figured I'd just, you know, include that at the end so you knew what I was talking about all along. Like, you know, I seen Darren on the Mechanic Mindset. He did it, and he was doing it, and you could see it actually walking and, you know, moving around like that. And that's just kind of cool to be able to measure that. But all in all, I mean, I really like the confidence the scope gives you, you know, going in, even the sounds that engine was making, and just knowing that you did a RC test, you know, I got it zoomed down pretty good, but if you got humps like that even, you know, then you should feel, you know, I think looking back in hindsight, you could either put a pressure gauge or a transducer in there, see how much you got, but I was looking mainly to see if this thing hit a valve, and you could tell it's, you know, if it would smack the valve, there's 4 in each cylinder, so if it would hit one of them, we wouldn't have had compression on one of them humps. But all right, guys, thanks a lot for watching. That ends the saga of the PT Cruiser, but I'm sure it'll be back for more. You know, we're going to go after the rocker cover next whenever he's up to that. Going to check out the Cadillac, see why it's leaking power steering fluid, and, you know, get Ronnie back going. He's been a good neighbor. He's a good guy. All right, guys, thanks a lot. Adios. That's the Poly Caddies leaving. Gotta figure out what's wrong with it next. Leaving pretty good trail out in the alley. Here's where he turned around.